Welcome back once again to our special coverage here of Davos Brainstorm here on India Today and Business Today TV. As we've been saying, geopolitics has dominated much of the agenda at the World Economic Forum. Donald Trump has finally left Davos, but not before leaving his imprint. How should one assess all that's happened, particularly in the last 24 hours? Joining me now is Walter Mead. He is from the Hudson Institute and writes for the Wall Street Journal, Global View columnist, and someone, Walter, who perhaps is struggling to come to terms with what Donald Trump really represents. He's just had a big border peace meeting on Gaza, and at the same time met the Ukrainian President Zelensky, said that peace is on the anvil. But is peace really on the anvil? Is Donald Trump really a man of peace?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure that he knows the answer. Even we didn't talk about this much at Davos, but the American aircraft carrier group has been sailing toward Iran this whole time. So we've been talking about Greenland, we've been talking about Ukraine, but something else may be happening in the Middle East.
You know, because the reason I'm asking you this, Walter, is that we've got a situation where Donald Trump is negotiating with Zelensky on the one side and is inviting Vladimir Putin to join a border peace on Gaza. I mean, it almost seems as if this is all transactional. None of it seems to have any moral underpinning.
You know, I think that's a reasonable conclusion, but I would say, you know, I knew Henry Kissinger very well, and he was someone who many people thought of as a cynic with absolutely no moral purpose, and some of the decisions that he made in office were tough decisions. But when you talk to him, he talked about the need for ultimately order and stability, and he had a kind of a tragic view of life that sometimes you can't have everything, and sometimes he said, you know, being a statesman is not always about achieving something fantastic. It's often about trying to have something that is merely bad rather than horrible. In that sense, I think Donald Trump actually does see some kind of, feels that he's doing the right thing at some level.
Does he really? You really believe that Donald Trump believes in what he says? When he took on his European allies yesterday, then a few hours later says, no, we've got I'm not going to use force against or to take over Greenland. We've got a framework for a deal. Is he a deal maker at the end of the day, rather than someone who actually believes in what he says?
Well, you know, you can believe in some of the things he says and still be a deal maker. You know, not the world does not conform perfectly to your wishes. But I would say that President Trump is a negotiator more than an orator. That is, he doesn't use communication to convey information sometimes. Sometimes what he does is he says something and then looks at the reaction that comes out of it. And then from the reaction, he can judge, okay, what is my bargaining partner really thinking?
So what's your sense? Given what we've seen happening, do you believe that we're any closer to a negotiated settlement on Ukraine? Are we any closer to ensuring that the people of Gaza get a new life? Or is this all a bit of headline-grabbing stories where we just don't know what tomorrow brings?
Well, I think we can be quite confident that we don't know what tomorrow brings.
I mean, it was Greenland today. Who knows which part of the world it'll be tomorrow?
But also, I think, look, the Gaza problem is extremely difficult in that the one thing that the rest of the world is insisting that Hamas do is disarm, but the one thing Hamas absolutely does not want to do is disarm. And so we're engaged in this very complicated dance trying to orchestrate pressure. The Israelis were trying to do it by an unrelenting campaign against Hamas. Can the same end be accomplished without the violence? In a way, Hamas has the answer to that. You and I do not.
Ukraine, which is really where Europe and America find themselves in a very, very difficult position. We heard Zelensky a short while ago, and he was suggesting that Europe hadn't done enough for him. He was virtually appealing to Trump to do something. Do you believe that Ukraine has been left to its own devices and therefore America needs to step in urgently? That's really the test of the Trumpian view of diplomacy. Can he get a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia?
Again, I'm not sure he thinks he can do that, but a lot of diplomacy is not, some problems cannot be solved or cannot be solved on the schedule that you would like. And in that case, sometimes what a diplomat or even more a political leader will do is just to try to find a pretty box to put this very unpleasant object in. And so we're talking about the Trump peace plan for Ukraine rather than the war in Ukraine, if you see what I mean. So that honestly, I don't think either the Russians or the Ukrainians are yet at a point where they are willing to make peace.
In conclusion, how do the Americans perceive Donald Trump now? They've had a year of Trump 2.0. Do many Americans believe that they just can't live with this constant uncertainty, or do they see him as the strongman president who can take out a Maduro overnight and sort of reassert American dominance, certainly over the Western Hemisphere? Or is public opinion very, very divided in America even now over Trump?
He seems to have about 40% approval ratings in the polls and about 56% disapproval, more or less, which is not great, but it is not the end of the world either. He's sort of, people are not happy with a lot that's going on. And also for Trump, the problem is Trump is always the guy who says, things are a mess, and I'm on your side. But now anything that is a mess, well, who's the president? If there's inflation, who's the president? If I don't like my taxes, who's the president? So now he has to stand in the role of the defender of the status quo when he runs as the great opponent, the great change maker.
So 2026, will we see an unsettled world because we don't know what happens next? And will we see a kind of domestic pushback with elections coming up in America in November against the Trumpian world order?
Well, I would say we're certainly going to see an unsettled world. I'm quite confident about that.
Unsettled world over the next 12 months.
Absolutely, and I suspect for longer than that. When you think about we see the rise of China, we see Russia involved in this war in Ukraine, but we add to that the information revolution, the tech revolution, AI that is, challenging people in their daily lives all over the world. Will we all have jobs in 3 years? A lot of people don't know the answer to that. So in those conditions, to expect somehow that world conditions are going to be smooth and easy and diplomacy will always work, I think that's unrealistic. What happens in the American midterms? I cannot tell you. We are still much too far away.
Walter Mead, I think what you've suggested is that we live in this very unsettled world order, and that in itself will create considerable anxiety and possibly keep us going in terms of just documenting what tomorrow brings. Today's breaking news is almost becoming tomorrow's history in a way, in a time of a kind that we've never lived in.
I think you're right. And I think we are in a world in which only trust and hope in God is going to be able to keep us sane.
Walter Mead, for joining me here at the Davos Brainstorm. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our continuing coverage here in Davos. Thanks for watching.
Okay.
Thanks, Walter.
Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and with me today is Nadir Godrej, the chairperson of the Godrej Industries Group. Nadir, welcome to this